a sexual encounter might have led to the stabbing death of a New York radio veteran.
In March 2009, 47-year-old New York newsman George Weber becomes the news when he's stabbed 50 times after being bound and apparently stripped. His killer targeted him on Craigslist. At least that's what it seemed. There are suggestions of a sex crime or possibly a kinky tryst gone wrong. Then within 4 days, the NYPD get their man. But he isn't a man at all. He's a boy, 16-year-old John Katehis. Legally, John is considered a minor, but he's tried as an adult and receives 25 years to life for second-degree murder. John's childhood ended that night in Brooklyn, and I've come to the Clinton Correctional Facility in upstate New York to find out why. I'm Candice DeLong. As an FBI agent, I worked on the front line for the world's most powerful law enforcement agency. I went undercover, I trailed terrorists, and I interviewed notorious killers. It's my job to understand the people who others cannot comprehend. John, when you were young, what did you think your life would be like? What did you want for yourself?
Surprisingly, I wanted to be a police officer.
Really?
I was gonna go into the military and then probably become an officer. Mm-hmm. It was always there, in the back of my mind. That's something I want to do after, when I'm done with high school. But for the most part, I was just enjoying life as it was.
Why were you drawn to that?
I don't know. I think that's something that most kids want. Young boys, they want to either be a cop or a firefighter or something like that. Mm-hmm. I guess like a sense of purpose or heroism or something like that.
Mm-hmm. It's a common boy's dream, but John seemed to have an edge to his quest for heroism. I saw several pictures of you, and I think maybe these are on your MySpace page?
I had a lot of crazy stuff on my MySpace I'm not proud of, that's for sure.
Several pictures of you holding up knives and displaying knives. They seem to be an important part of you, your persona, your life.
Maybe as a teenager. Mm-hmm. That just went along with everything else. I just thought it was cool and wasn't thinking much really. Mm-hmm. I just thought, hey, cool, knife, whatever.
Did you carry a knife?
Occasionally, not always. Better than carrying a gun. There's plenty of teenage boys that carry guns, especially in New York City.
Yeah. At the time, John claimed to be an anarchist. Again, not that unusual for teens testing boundaries. He used his online persona to look tough, but in reality, John says he was on the straight and narrow. Did you have much experience with alcohol at that point in your life?
Not more than your average teenager, nothing.
Well, sometimes by the age of 16, a lot of kids have had quite a bit of experience with alcohol and others none, and then there's the in-between. Where were you on that spectrum?
I was closer to not a lot of experience, just a couple of beers here and there, whatever.
Did you have any experience with any kind of illegal drugs?
No.
None?
Not
you
at
did
all.
not do drugs?
No.
Cocaine, meth?
No, definitely not meth. I don't even think we have meth in New York City.
Heroin?
No.
Pot?
Not even.
Different.
I didn't even smoke cigarettes.
Really? John's social life sounds like typical teen stuff. He even admits to me that he used the internet to meet up with girls. But what he does next, I find more interesting.
I placed a variety of real out there sex ads on Craigslist. All over the place. Men for men, men for women, men whatever. Mm-hmm.
Such as, what would you say?
Like, real out there, like different things for comedic purposes. It was just for the reactions.
John says he enjoyed winding people up. That's not a crime. But it takes a certain personality type. Someone who is comfortable putting their feelings above others.
What kind of reactions did you get?
Just all kinds of things, you know. I put an ad out. One, I was like, you know, a fat guy wants someone to rub my chest or something like that. Real stupid stuff, just to get the stupid reactions I would get from people.
John thinks his trolling was harmless. He never wanted to act out his fanciful ads. Then one day, he receives a counteroffer from Smother Boy.
He said he actually didn't want to have sex with anyone, but he wanted to be smothered. You know, and then he had some pictures attached that showed like hands covering his face and his nose, and you know, he was all red and everything.
What did you think of that? It's pretty unusual.
Yeah, I've never really heard of that kind of, you know, like someone wants to be choked or hurt or smothered. I thought that was pretty out there. Guy said he'd pay $60 just for someone to smother him for 30 minutes. I said, hey, why not? I could go do that.
Making quick cash has never cost so much. John Katehis is just 22, but he has already served 5 years in prison. In 2009, John gets caught in his own trap, advertising himself as a 16-year-old on the Craigslist adults section. Someone takes him up on it and has a special request: to be smothered.
Here's a middle-aged man who's asking for something very strange and willing to pay you for it.
It was odd, you know, and I guess I thought about it briefly, and since it wasn't actually sexual in nature, he just wanted to be smothered, and he was gonna pay to do that just for 30 minutes. I figured, why not?
Well, $60.
For 30 minutes, for nothing.
So you have a back and forth interaction with George, and what was decided?
Oh, we set a date, you know, a date that we would meet, not an actual date, you know, and, you know, we exchanged phone numbers. He gave me the information on how to get to where he was staying. Mm-hmm. And that was it. And then, you know, I met up with him.
Was John simply a naive teen out of his depth in an adult world? Or was he more calculating, wanting to take his online humiliations into the real world?
After school, I changed, and I headed, you know, right over to Weber's place. I was following his instructions. You know, I stopped in front of the house and I called him up. Mm-hmm. And he answered, he opened the door and let me in. We entered the apartment, and, you know, we sit down in his living room, and we made small talk. He offered me a beer. All right, sure, whatever. You know, I took the beer and I drank it, and we chit-chatted a little bit more. He goes, well, let me show you what we got going on in the room.
The
bedroom.
bedroom.
You know, he had a number of items laid out on the bed. He had like duct tape, rope, and some fluid inside of a container. He said it was poppers, he called it, and a rag. And supposedly I was to put it on the rag and put it on his face so he can inhale it. I guess it got him high.
Poppers are vials of the party drug amyl nitrate. It enhances orgasm.
He said that he's done this a lot, you know, and also during the emails, you know, he had a bunch of pictures that he sent me, you know, showing exactly what I'd be doing, you know, covering his face, you know, suffocating him and choking him.
Did he make it clear he did not want to have sex with you?
Yeah, that wasn't what we agreed upon.
And he didn't ask you to take your clothes off?
No.
He didn't take his off?
No, I mean, you know, he took off his shoes, and I did the same.
Okay, so you're in the bedroom, and how soon after you got there would you say that you got down to business?
First, I think he wanted me to just tie his hands. And so I duct taped his hands, you know, put a loop or two. I did the same for his feet. Then he wanted me to get on top of him while he was laying down on his back, and they just kind of hold my hands over his face. And so I did that for a little bit. When I put the poppers on him, he'd inhale it, and I'd hold it on him for like maybe 30, 40 seconds. He'd redden up, and I'd let go, and he'd take a deep breath. After I did that for a little bit, that he wanted to feel more vulnerable, more exposed. And I'm like, all right, so what do you want? And he said he wanted me to pull down his pants. And I just actually went on ahead and I pulled down his pants and his boxers. And then that was really when it was like, that's when I actually started thinking about what the hell was going on. And I felt uncomfortable and I kind of hesitated and I was like, gonna say something. And then then he asked me to actually jerk him off.
Well, that's sex. He
I
had
know.
said no sex.
Smother Boy is about to get way more than he bargained for. At 16, John Katehis claims he got in way over his head when he met up with George Weber. What starts as smothering turns into something more when John is asked to perform a sexual act, an act that he is too young to consent to legally.
He
I
had
know.
said no sex.
Obviously, that's not what I wanted to do. And I said, I'm not gonna do that. And he was, getting pissed off and he's like, stop wasting my time. You're here, you might as well just go ahead and do it. That's what your ad was about anyways. I couldn't really just explain to him that it was just a joke, And I said, F you, I'm not doing that. He got pissed off and he sat up.
Were his hands bound?
His hands were still bound.
And
in front of him,
ankles?
and his ankles. It was loosely down, just one roll. It's light. He just came out of the duct tape. He put his hand in his pocket and he pulled out a pocket knife.
But his pants were down.
His pants were down.
So how?
Well, his pants are right there, his ankles.
Okay, all right.
Thinking about it now, he probably just wanted to remove the tape from his feet. But at the moment, I was nervous. I started to feel weird, especially after seeing, I'd never seen a man like that before naked. It was just different for me.
Was he aroused?
He was, I'm embarrassed to say so, but he was.
Did that frighten you?
Yeah, it just felt weird.
We only have John's word here. Whatever happened, John reacts violently.
I was just focused on a knife. It was like fight or flight, he was between me and the doorway, the way the bedroom was set up.
But his feet were bound.
I'm not thinking about that. My
'Cause
mind
you
wasn't
could
in
have
the right
run
place.
out.
Sure, now thinking about it, I could have maybe jumped over the bed. I could have ran past him. But at the moment, when you're in that moment, you're not thinking about that.
So instead of choosing flight from a man with bound feet, John chooses fight. He grabs for the knife and receives a deep cut to his finger.
So then at that moment, I felt, the pain and I saw like my own blood. And then I don't know. I guess something just snapped. And it was like, I wasn't even there. It was like looking at a movie, not being able to dictate what's gonna happen next. And I just went off on him.
The autopsy revealed that George was stabbed 50 times. Not once.
I know.
50's a lot. Do you remember
Pretty wild.
any of that?
No.
John claims to have blacked out during the attack. It is possible an arterial wound in an adrenaline-charged rage could contribute to a blackout.
And I remember seeing it was just pumping out. I didn't even think you could do that from your hand. So finally I got to the bathroom, and I figured I can try and wrap it or something. I don't even know what the hell I was doing. I was thinking, Excuse me. I was thinking like, oh my God, this is crazy. I wasn't really thinking at all. At one point when I started to come to a little bit, and then I remembered about George. And I went back into the room, and this shows just how out of whack I was. I actually had an aspirin bottle with me, and I tried giving him aspirin as if that would even help. I mean, that's just ridiculous.
The aspirin tells me John was feeling remorse right after the murder when he came down from his rage. But he doesn't call 911. Instead, he changes into a pair of his victim's jeans and leaves.
I walked the 2 or 3 blocks to the train station. I'm still bleeding. And it's just bleeding all over the place.
He collapses at a train station and is rushed to the emergency room. That night, John almost dies. On March 20th, 2009, 16-year-old John Katehis kills George Weber with a knife, then almost dies of blood loss himself. His life is saved at the hospital, but he soon realizes what he has done.
When did you find out George Weber was a well-known news person in New York?
When I looked up Brooklyn murder on the internet, and instantly all these things just popped up with George Weber's face on it and everything. And I'm looking at this like, oh my God, like I think that's the guy. It's like this guy's killed in his apartment, brutally slayed, and this and that. I'm just reading these headlines, and I'm like, oh my God, they're gonna kill me. Like, the cops are gonna come after me. They don't care what happened. They're gonna slay me.
John hides out at a friend's place, but he's left a digital trail. Emails to the victim arranging a rendezvous with Greek Satan 92 lead police straight to John Katehis.
Investigators located Katehis outside a bus station about 60 miles.
He's arrested, but the 16-year-old does not come clean.
Were there drugs involved before the interaction in the bedroom?
No.
You told the police
I
that
did.
there had been. What did you tell the police?
I told the police that there was cocaine.
And why did you do that?
Excuse me for a moment.
Sure. You okay?
Yeah, the light.
Okay.
I didn't want to tell him anything. I didn't even want to be there. I was just out of it. I was just giving him the bare minimum of whatever. And then naturally, just as a teenager, to me, stuck in that situation, I just wanted to save my own ass, I guess. And I also didn't want to, embarrass myself or him by, mentioning any of the other details, about what we were originally supposed to do and this and that.
John told so many stories back then. Is this just another one today? I'm not so sure.
Did you share with your defense attorney what really happened?
No, I've never actually even shared with anyone what really happened until now.
And why now?
I guess I'm older, I'm more mature now, I've thought about it, and it's just like, this is ridiculous. I should have told this story when I first got arrested. I should have came out clean like with all of this, and I probably would have never even been charged such a harsh charge and this and that. It was just teenage embarrassment, for the most part.
John seems very protective of his reputation. I believe he would avoid humiliation at any cost. Would things be different if he told this story to prosecutors? Perhaps, but he would still have to explain why he didn't just walk away from a man whose feet were bound.
You're convicted of second-degree murder of George Weber. Did you intend to kill him?
Absolutely not.
What was your intention?
I had no intention. My intention was to just get out of there.
John certainly regrets his actions as a teenager. He'll have to serve a minimum of 25 years before there is any hope of parole. But even parole isn't something he's looking forward to.
Say I got now 27, 29 years in. I don't want to go home after that. All I would know was prison. How can you go home after 29 years and be locked until you're 16? It's just a setup for failure. You know, I'll be dysfunctional. There's no preparation for that. I'll probably just eat a bullet if they let me go home after 29 years. There's no love.
I hope that doesn't happen.
John Katehis robbed a man of his life because of immaturity. He snapped when he was 16. The practical joker got caught up in an adult world. He reacted violently and disproportionately. Now he's growing up and facing the consequences. John has to navigate his road to manhood from behind bars. By the time John is released, I hope he can become a valuable member of society. At the very least, it's a cautionary tale of what can happen when you grow up too fast.